before. This is a temporary development. It's not a permanent one, and it will have to be removed at the end of that period and the site to be put back to its former use. It's also an important proposal contributing towards the sustainable development, which is a nationally supported proposal. The next couple of slides are photo montages. The first, the upper one is the site as is, and the bottom one has the site with the installation in, and I'm seeing if I can, so we can see the panels there. And again, another one showing the site prior to, if you approve it, the proposal showing some of the fencing, a couple of the small buildings and the panels. The report goes through a number of different considerations. Ecology and biodiversity are also those, and you will see that the ecological services have looked at the proposals, and they don't raise any objection to them, and they support the mitigation and enhancement measures. The Wildlife Trust have also looked at the proposal and are supportive. It is of note, just to say, in terms of the site selection, that there are no statutory or non-statutory designations for nature conservation, but in fact any other heritage conservation either. So there are no designations on the site. And it is the view of those consultees and your officers that the proposal will not generate an unacceptable adverse impact on diversity or European designated sites. And the details submitted in terms of biodiversity actually demonstrate not what will be the required 10% benefit, but actually a far greater one, estimated to be over 70% biodiversity net gain from the proposal, partly to do with the planting that's being proposed, and also taking out of some of the rotational crops, which doesn't have, I say, necessarily a benefit on biodiversity. In terms of access, it's going to be, site would be accessed by an existing farm entrance and a private track. Again, your highway officers have looked at the proposal, and in terms of visibility and their view that it would have very limited impact on the highway network. Clearly, a short construction period bringing things onto the site, but it's estimated after that there will probably be one visit per week to the site once it's up and running. So there are no objections from the Highway Authority, and a construction management plan for the management of the construction period can be secured by condition, and that's been proposed. Matters of flooding and drainage have also been considered, and it's not considered that it's going to have an adverse impact on either of those. Heritage impacts in terms of listed buildings, conservation areas. Again, conservation specialists have looked at the proposal in respect of those matters, and they do not consider that it's going to cause harm. Excuse me. Glint and glare, not considered to affect any identified receptors, and there is no objection in terms of security and design matters from the police. What now follows really is some photographs. I'll just leave that up for a second because Some of you, I suspect, might know the sites better than I do, but from where they've been taken, starting and moving around the site in a clockwise direction. But just before I do that, other matters, sorry, I'm on the wrong. Sorry, my laptop's got a mind of its own at the moment. Right, that's the access, going through an existing access. And these are the road that it would come off. And then these are the ones going around the site. So the last slide really just has the key issues for your consideration. The principle, which is thought to comply with local and national planning policy when taken as a whole. It's accepted that the development would be on high-grade agricultural land, but it does represent a temporary development, so the impacts are not permanent, and it wouldn't result in the loss of a permanent loss of that land. There will be an impact on the landscape character and visual amenity, but they thought that the impacts can be mitigated by the planting that's being proposed. And the site, in terms of its selection, and again, this is set out in the report, has been partly selected because it's outside any designated areas. The amount of biodiversity net gain will greatly exceed what is normally required, and there's going to be no impact on highway safety, flooding, heritage assets or other matters of acknowledged importance, and therefore your officers are recommending approval subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. We're now going to move on to the public speakers on this, and the first on my list is Philip Knowles, who's joining us by Teams. Mr. Knowles, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I can hear you.
You have 3 minutes, sir.
Lovely, thank you very much.
When you're comfortable, your 3 minutes start when you start to speak.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're disappointed, to be honest, to see the planning officer's recommendation in the face of multiple objections from local residents as well as Hulse Parish Council. We acknowledge that there are policy considerations, but the official line takes little account of the impact of this sort of development on those who have to live with it. Only 12 members of the public actually wrote in support of this. Only 3 of those live locally, and 3 of the responses are duplicated in a similar application relating to Creech St Michael. Now, as regards government policy on solar farms, senior political figures, as well as many others, are concerned that we're installing these at the expense of food security by using good agricultural land. The fact that something is government policy doesn't make it a good idea. Surely we've learnt that by now. The fact that crops cannot be grown on brownfield land and rooftops, but solar panels can be installed there. We may have a climate emergency, but given the unsettled state of the world, how much longer will it be before we have a food emergency as well? Are we then going to rue the day we allowed developers to save costs by using land we could have used to grow food? Now, much is made of the claim that the development will result in only the temporary loss of agricultural land. I find this wholly disingenuous. 40 years is half a lifetime if we're lucky. Who is to say what condition this land is going to be in after that time, or that a second application would not be granted, made easier by the grant of the first? If we're being honest, I suggest that this land will probably be lost to agriculture for good. As for the claimed increase in biodiversity, where is the evidence that tearing up a field and installing a solar farm is going to achieve that? It's easy to justify developments of this kind by claiming currently desirable outcomes, addressing the climate emergency, increasing biodiversity, but I'd ask the committee to consider carefully whether, viewed against other factors of equal merit, those claimed benefits are more apparent than real. But our main concern is the fire risk from this site. If this application must be granted, we would ask the council, please, to ensure that there is at least a 20-metre fire break between any installation and the northern boundary of our property. We own 3 acres of coniferous woodland, the northern boundary of which directly abuts the application site. Our concern is that if a fire breaks out, it could destroy the woodland. Fires at solar farms may be rare, but fire is clearly a risk, or the fire authority would not be referring to fire hydrants in its submission. This site is isolated. It's accessible only from the B3227 via a long farm track. And by the time the fire service arrives, assuming the fire was spotted in the first place, our wood would probably be well alight. So I do ask the council to consider that.
You have had your 3 minutes, so would you please bring your comments to a close?
Indeed, Chair, I've just finished. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for that. Thank you. The next public speaker on my list is Mike Davis. I'm not sure if Ms Davis is here, nor is he online. So I'm going to ask the committee clerk to read out his comments. He kindly sent his script in, so our committee clerk will read out those comments.
My name is Michael Davis, and I've been resident of Hulse for 24 years. I address the Planning Committee as an advocate of renewable energy, having spent considerable money on solar PV, ground and air source heat pumps for my residential properties and businesses since 2012. Councillors are being asked tonight to make judgment on this solar farm without adequate information. You do not know how much energy will be produced from crops or human consumption. The NPPF places a weighty burden on you, added to by presumption to support such proposals. But you are required in the case of agricultural land to decide which is more important for sustaining life, renewable energy or the amount of food it can produce. Tonight, you do not know how much food the land will produce over 40 years. You do not know how much carbon the solar development produces and saves versus carbon produced in importing more vegetables. Therefore, you cannot make a safe decision on what is most important for sustainability. What you should be aware of is that the government health and decarbonisation policies are promoting greater use of vegetables. We also know that food inflation is real, and the ability to supply all our own vegetables increases prices and produces more transport emissions. We are also very conscious that worldwide supply chains are being disrupted, forcing up prices. Sadly, if NATO is to be believed, we could well be at war in the next few years and will need more farmland, not less. Dig for Britain will return, and people will wonder why so much productive farmland was given up. Food security is paramount, especially when you consider how much we currently import. Mr. Williams has taken the consultant's word on soil quality from the developer's specialists, rather than ask for an independent opinion to verify their application claims. I ask that councillors defer a decision until they have the facts and a third-party soil report, not a developer-friendly consultant. The developer's sheep will graze. They will not. Sheep are highly destructive. No sheep have grazed at the 43-acre Hulse Farm solar developments, despite that developer's promise. The choice for councillors is simple. Take good land out of food production, import more food with all the attendant carbon produced from transportation, whilst enriching the developers and landowner. Or keep agricultural land feeding the nation, satisfying people's abilities to eat and drink must come before all else. Please defer the decision tonight in order that you can get the information that will allow you to make a safe decision. Without a full understanding of the agricultural productivity of the land, nor knowledge of the consequential increase of carbon created from imported produce, how can you make a safe or reasoned decision? After those are the arguments that you are being asked to consider under the NPPF before making a decision. To not be able to justify the decision by weighing up the factors would leave the decision open to a legitimate appeal.
Okay, thank you. The next public speaker is Ian Gauntlet, please. Mr. Gauntlet, would you come to the desk at the front? And when you're comfortable, if you push the right-hand button, the light will come on and your 3 minutes start when you start speaking, sir. And you can see, I think, the clock directly in front of you. Okay? No, indeed, that's the whole point behind it there, sir. No, well, as I say, if you push the right-hand button, the light will come on and your time starts when you start speaking.
So that's on now. Fine. Good afternoon. My name is Ian Gauntlet. I'm a retired consultant and anaesthetist working at Musgrove Park and have lived in Milverton for 35 years. I've served 8 years as a parish councillor for Milverton, and I care about our community. We're facing a massive climate crisis. Urgent and substantial expansion of renewable energy sources is absolutely essential. This is why I'm here today to strongly recommend you approve this planning application. Reading the objecting comments, two broad themes come through. First, aesthetic issues, that's views and landscape concerns and a footpath being affected. The second is the appropriateness of using agricultural land. With regards to agriculture, I'd like to spend a moment putting this into perspective. Looking across the nation, ground-mounted solar panels take up just 0.5% of usable farmland. That is less than 1/5 of the space taken up by golf courses, of which we have 4 in this vicinity, and less than half that now used for airports. Putting solar panels on farmland does not exclude its agricultural use, and I'm told in this case the land will be also used for grazing sheep. To answer the concerns mentioned in some objections, this is fully reversible. In due course, the land will be restored to full agricultural use. With the rest from arable farming, it will certainly be in better condition than it is today. It is clear that without rapid decarbonisation, the extreme effects of climate change are already wreaking havoc on our UK agriculture. This is not happening in the future, it is happening now. Locally, we've had torrents of floodwater coursing down the main street in Milverton. We are experiencing terrible weather events, towns underwater, farmland flooded, power lines down, crops ruined. In the summer, we've had droughts, harvests withering in the fields, and wildfires, which even in this country are burning our houses down. I accept that change can be challenging for all of us in different ways. Accepting that our worlds are not the ones we are used to, nor will they ever be again, is a very hard truth to come to terms with. You can object to wasting land with solar panels, But if we don't urgently deal with this climate emergency, for which renewable energy is an essential part of the solution, we will lose more than just our pretty views. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Excellent time, so thank you. The next public speaker on my list is Hannah Montag, please. I hope I've got your name pronounced properly. Oh, good. Thank you. Again, when you reach the desk and you're comfortable, push the right-hand button, the light will come on and your 3 minutes starts when you start speaking. Okay.
Hello, my name is Hannah. I live in Runnington and my son goes to school in Milverton. I'm an ecologist and actively involved in local sustainability groups, including the Transition Town and Greener Langford Budville. I'm speaking in favour of this solar farm development. Through my work, I've visited around 100 operational solar farms and have been involved in various ecology surveys and research, including botany, birds and pollinators. This has all shown that solar farms can be a haven for wildlife. Taking land out of intensive agricultural production with its associated routine ploughing, fertilising, herbicide and pesticide use means that it can become hugely valuable for wildlife, as well as increasing water quality and reducing runoff. Given that we're one of the most nature depleted countries in the world, we desperately need to create more space for the plants and animals that we cohabit this country with. Published research has shown that solar farms can aid pollinators like bees and butterflies by providing a long-term food resource, and that this can actually increase agricultural production on adjacent land. Other studies have shown that bird populations can be increased on solar farms when compared to agricultural land, and numbers of our many rare and threatened birds can be boosted. We've lost 97% of our wildflower meadows in the UK, but solar farms can mitigate that. Botanical diversity is significantly increased, and I personally have seen sites where hugely diverse flower-rich habitats have developed. Even in cases where soil fertility is high from agricultural inputs, I have seen sites with flushes of orchids where they haven't previously been recorded. In addition to all this, we now know far more about the complex web of soil microorganisms, including fungi, that thrive in permanent pastures and are disrupted through ploughing and use of chemicals. Solar farms can be hugely beneficial for soil health. I'm pleased to see that the proposals for North Preston include species-rich hedgerow planting, a woodland copse, restoration of a pond, and seeding of a wildflower meadow. This should all be supported with a detailed management plan as per the proposed planning condition. Overall, the solar farm will increase biodiversity by 75% for habitats. I would also like to see a link up with the local school, which has an eco-school status, so that the children can learn about renewable energy and wildlife. I understand the current concerns about food security, especially with overseas conflicts and the approaching catastrophe of climate change. However, we have more than enough land in this country to be completely self-sustaining without any imports. It's our diet that is the problem. With 70% of our land used for agriculture, that's 17 million hectares, surely we can spare less than 0.5% to create green energy, which is the current extent of solar farm developments across the UK. After all, energy security is just as important as food security. In summary, solar farms can address both the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis, and we all need to support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent time. Thank you. The last public speaker is the applicant, Mr. Richard Turner. Mr. Turner, the same comments to you, sir, as to others. When you get to the desk and you are comfortable, if you push the right-hand button, the red light will come on and your 3 minutes starts when you start speaking, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this important planning application. My name is Richard Turner, and I'm the planning manager for Novus, the applicant. 2023 was confirmed as the warmest on record, with average global temperatures nearly 1.5 degrees hotter than before humans started burning large amounts of fossil fuels. This was also the year that the UK government committed at COP28 to triple renewables by 2030. While many renewable projects are facing long delays connecting to the grid, this solar farm can be built this year to help quickly achieve local and national targets. It is impossible to ignore climate change impacts and the need to tackle the climate emergency. Indeed, the DEFRA UK Food Security Report identified that the biggest single threat to food security in the UK is in fact climate change. Importantly, solar is both the cheapest and quickest form of renewable energy to deploy. Somerset has an abundance of protected landscapes such as Exmoor National Park and 4 designated national landscapes. These are rightly afforded the highest degree of protection in planning, and therefore projects like this steer away from these more sensitive areas. This site is not only positioned outside these landscapes, but also away from community areas. It lies in a natural bowl with established mature hedgerows and trees, ensuring it cannot be easily seen. Your officers have provided a very thorough assessment of our application, weighing up the limited impacts of this fully reversible development against the significant benefits, concluding with a recommendation for approval. I don't wish to repeat the details you've already heard. We would like to just emphasise the following key benefits to members before you debate this application. The Council declared a climate emergency in 2019 with a target of becoming carbon neutral by 2030. The strategy states Somerset has significant untapped potential in relation to renewable energy, and there is an opportunity to reprioritise and stimulate the local economy, develop skills, create jobs and drive growth. As we've just heard from local residents supporting this application, there will be significant habitat enhancement. The solar farm will deliver around 75% biodiversity net gain. This includes over 1,000 linear metres of native hedgerow planting. There would be continued agricultural co-use, as we have also heard from both your officers and Dr. Gauntlet. This is not a choice between solar and agriculture. Here we have a project that can deliver both. The site will be used for grazing of livestock beneath and around the panels. As we've also just heard, we know this is important to local people, and therefore I want to emphasise that this project comprises less than 0.01% of farmland in Somerset, retaining extensive areas of food producing land. To conclude, our application presents a real opportunity to significantly reduce carbon emissions to help tackle climate change. There are no statutory objections, and our project has local support. I hope you can support your officer's recommendation for approval. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bernard. Thank you for your excellent timing as well. Committee members. Well,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I say earlier on in my declaration of interest, I've interests, if you like, on both sides of the argument here. I mean, having looked at the report, there are several things that slightly trouble me. I have to say that the loss of the best and most versatile agricultural land for me is a serious matter, as it is clear that we're going to lose grade 1, 2 and 3A, which are all the ones that the government say should not be developed on. I'm also not entirely happy with the rationale on page 49, which seems to imply that well, this is the only place in the area and so that's okay, when in actual fact, if you're trying to protect best and versatile land, why are you searching in an area that's got an awful lot of it? I mean, Milverton is very fortunate. We've got a lot of grade 1, grade 2 land round about. That said, this land has been in continuous arable, I'm pretty certain, for some years. And I think most of us realise that if you're continuously ploughing and cultivating an area of land, its fertility gradually starts to deplete. So therefore, I'm a great advocate of giving land a rest to allow it to naturally regenerate and come back. And so this solar farm would allow the land to rest and restore its fertility. I don't like 40 years. I think in agreement with Mr. Knowles, 40 years is not temporary. None of us will be around to see what happens in 40 years. I would prefer a length of 25. Well, apart from Councillor Perry, obviously. Wishing your life away, Derek. But seriously, so there is that. I'm slightly bothered by the comments about the conifer wood, which you may have seen on some of the photographs, which Mr. Knowles owns. That said, I would have thought that the siting of the panels to avoid any shading would be sufficiently far away to avoid any collateral inflammation. I would have thought, I don't know, because I haven't studied the plans in that level of detail, but I would certainly at this time of the year when the sun is low, you would expect the panels to be sighted back so you can get the maximum, so they're not going to be shaded. So I'm not sure about that as a problem, although clearly, you know, Mr. Knowles is very concerned about it, and I'm sure if it were passed, he would be able to have discussions with the applicant about how to make sure the situation doesn't arise. I think the only other thing I want to say was about the vegetative cover. This land is very light, and vegetative cover is incredibly important, and particularly if there is a slight slope around, and water dripping in one area will gully, and it does erode and gully very badly in this area. So actually the future land management and the management plan of how it's going to be looked after, and I'm not at all convinced that sheep are a solution here, is terribly important. So overall, we've got the loss of the best and versatile land. We have a swathe of government policy and to an extent local planning policy on the other side of the equation. So the thing for me is pretty finely balanced, I have to say. So I'd be very interested to hear what other councils have to say on this.
Okay, thank you. Mike Rogers next, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. As we sit here, more than half of our electricity in the UK is currently being provided from renewable sources, which is big progress in recent years. We've signed up as a council to a climate emergency, and in order to fulfil the aims of that emergency, where we need to get to, we'll need a lot more renewable energy. It's likely that we'll need probably double the energy generating capacity that we currently have as the UK's economy is electrified. And we've seen in the last week with the news coming out of Port Talbot about the change from old coal-fired blast furnaces to new electric arc furnaces to create steel, for example, very currently a carbon intensive activity. So I think we need, in that context, really good reasons to refuse new energy generation in our area, particularly of the type that we're talking about here. I've had over the years several solar arrays built within the ward that I represent, which I think just about neighbours Gwyl's ward. And I have to say that the effects have been fairly negligible. There are some impacts during construction, I think that's fair to say, but they aren't significant compared, for example, with having 173 new houses built on the edge of the village that I live in. And I think those impacts can be managed fairly well. And on that basis, I think the report strikes the right balance. It examines the impacts such as they are, and Councillor Wren's done a sterling job of assessing the impact of BMV in this particular case. It is an issue, but I think the report, as I say, strikes the right balance and recommends approval. And I'm happy at the appropriate time to suggest that we accept the recommendation and approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Caroline Ellis, followed by Derek Perry, please.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Mike has said, and I hope that we do approve this today. I think we have had other solar farm proposals before us which had many issues with them. This one, it seems to me to be an altogether better scheme in terms of its siting, its location. I'm impressed by the level of biodiversity net gain. It just seems to be the right thing in a better place, if you see what I mean. We are going to have to massively expand renewables. I would love it if every building had solar panels on the roof, but that ain't going to happen fast enough. There are barriers at national level in terms of policy. Even this local authority could do a hell of a lot more to enable solar on roofs, but we are going to need it desperately. We are going to need more solar farms. It's a question of us making that judgment call. Is it the right thing in the right location? And I think for this one, I think it will be fine. I think it will be fine there. And I think, yeah, all the issues have been kind of looked at. I would just say, grazing sheep on stuff, if this is a climate emergency, an ecological emergency, we're partly in this, not just because of fossil fuels, but because of animal agriculture. So as much as you love the idea of cows and sheep grazing and eating your dead flesh and whatever, if we don't get away from that, we're going to hell in a handcart no matter what we do on fossil fuels, people. So I just thought I'd remind everybody of that. And if you move to plant-based diets, you wouldn't need half of the agricultural land, and then you could have more solar farms, you could have wind, you could have more forests, you could have more wildflower meadows, all of this wonderful stuff. So I'm very much minded to approve this one. I think it's great. Actually, I would like to thank the people who took the time from the community to come and speak on it. I think that's really, really helpful, and I'm glad that there is local support for it.
Derek.
I don't think I need to speak anymore after what's been said, so move on.
Okay, Councillor Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of points, but before I actually go to the points, I'd like to assure Councillor Wren that medical science is changing rapidly, and I hope to see Councillor Wren along with the rest of us in 40 years' time. So that's on the lighter note, but slightly concerned about the surface water runoffs that the development is likely to generate. So is there a way of actually addressing that? And if there is, can we be enlightened on that? The other point that I'd like to raise is when we come to decommissioning the sites, hopefully in 40 years or so, I hope that it will be in line with the environmental whatever impact requirement will be at that time rather than what it is today. So if it isn't, can we actually specify that within the recommendation that it will be decommissioned in 40 years' time and recycle, most of the stuff will be recycled with that in mind? Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Rosemary. It's Rosemary.
Yes. Right. I would be interested to see the line where the two parishes meet and how much of this land is in Hulse and how much is in Milverton, because we've had different opinions from those two parishes. Could you do that on the screen? Or give us a percentage? Boundaries. Seven, yeah. You're saying the parish boundaries are on that map? Oh. Perhaps, I know there's, Gwyl, I think, knows where the boundaries are because he's been involved with both parishes. I would like to get a feel on what has been said between the two parishes.
Hold on just a moment, Rosemary. Will, are you in a position to provide that level of information?
As a point of information, and I may be corrected by the applicant, but my recollection was that it's about 20 to 25% of the land is in Hulse parish and the rest is in Milverton parish. The sight lines are that it can be seen from the south of Hulse parish more than it can be seen from Milverton parish on a B3227.
That's the lay of the land, of course. Yeah. Okay, did that answer your query, Rosemary?
Kind of, yes. I was hoping it was going to be the other way around.
Can't move the parish boundaries, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Thinking about it, I mean, I am concerned with this as best quality agricultural land, and you can't grow it. You can't grow the land. You can only lose it. So that puts myself in a difficult position because you're not inventing land, but you are inventing PVs. But they can go on my house. They can go on industrial buildings. much better than agricultural land. And that is where I stand, is that, you know, let's put them where they're best used and it doesn't interfere with our agriculture. Because I'm not convinced that we won't need this land within the 40-year period. And has been said, temporary 40 years. I've heard that one before.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I think the figure for the best and most versatile land, the best and most versatile, I think was 14%. Is that not right, Sarah? And there are other grades as well, but the top grade was, I think, 14%. We did have the number up on the screen. There we are, 14% in grade 1. And the other percentages are there. So there is certainly a mix of best and better land. Certainly. The
Chairman.
Sorry. Okay. The next councillor on my list is Sarah Wakefield, please. Sarah.
Thank you. I also appreciate the speakers from the local area, which is helpful to have very much. And I can see that this is a contentious one locally, as I think, to be honest, it would be anywhere. I mean, I love walking in the countryside. I do a lot of that. And I hate the loss of agricultural land, but where I live, when I first moved there, it was all grass and now it's all crops. And actually, I regard that as a loss as well, because there's far more runoff and there's far more chemicals thrown on the ground than there used to be. So I think we all have to get used to a change in the look of our countryside as a result of the changes that we see in our world. I personally think that solar PVs are less intrusive than wind farms. I mean, I think wind farms are very intrusive, actually. They completely change the landscape. They're enormous things, out of scale with anything human. And although they produce good electricity in certain places, I think solar PV is more acceptable. Just a little note about the use of commercial buildings. When I was in practice as a lawyer, we were at the beginning of this suggestion that commercial buildings roofs should be used for solar PVs. It is extremely difficult to do that. I think you need a lot of change in the law because most owners don't want to lose control of their roof, because you have to agree to it staying on there for a length of time. And you've then lost control of the roof. And if you're a tenant, you don't necessarily want somebody else having control of the roof and taking the electricity off it. It just doesn't work very well. It's not very acceptable. If it's your own building and you own it and you're going to carry on owning it, you might think about doing it. But it's a question of who gets the benefit of it. And it's usually the person who puts the panels on the roof rather than the owner. So that's a problem. I mean, I've got them on my house. I wish the government would change the law so that we had to put them on every new house. And people don't know this, but local authorities are not allowed to make that a planning stipulation because there's been case law to say you can't. But if the government would change their mind about that, we could actually have solar panels on all new buildings, on all new houses. So my only other point is, because I do think I am going to support this because I think we need solar PV, more of it. This wasn't a question that was asked or answered, but do they have a connection to the grid lined up? Because that's the big problem with solar PV at the moment. We had one that the council were going to build up near Bridgewater, and we cannot get a connection to the grid for 10 years.
On page 50.
Oh, I missed it then.
Yeah, it's 900 meters to the south.
Okay, well, that's fine. If they've got a connection and they can do it, then that's even more reason for allowing it to go ahead. Thank you.
I agree wholeheartedly about the installation of solar panels on all roofs. On the continent, most new houses, the tiles are not slate. They're actually photovoltaic. It's about time this country caught up with the rest of Europe, in my view. But we need a different view from government for that. We're not there yet. Okay, the next three on my list are Ross, followed by Stephen, followed by Derek.
Yeah, we've heard quite a lot about this site being available for food production. Unless I missed it, and I apologise if I did. Excuse me. What type of food production is this site being used for at present? What has it been utilised for? And also listening to a number of the representations as well. Notwithstanding what we're presented with locally, we have a council climate emergency that we've declared, and we know that we need to be investing much more heavily as a country in renewable energy, as Councillor Rigby, as other people have said. The online wind production industry has been destroyed by government diktats and attitudes as well. But even setting that aside, if we were to look at this recommendation, which is for approval, with looking at the professional consultees that have been consulted and their response, landscape authorities, no objection, hang on, not them, no, sorry, SEC Ecology, Natural England, the Rights to Way, the Transport Development Group, the Lee Flood Authority have raised no objections. It'd be really hard, I think, for us to sustain a successful objection to this application. And we have one, myself and Councillor Wakefield we have a very big site at the top of the Black Downs at Colne Head, which we drive past probably 2 or 3 times a week. Can't even say I ever notice it there anymore now. It's unnoticeable. And these sites do feed into our agenda of, you know, sort of cleaner energy. And I think upon balance, I'd like to know what the site is utilised for at the moment, but on balance of what I've heard so far, I'm minded to support the officer's recommendation to support this.
Okay, whilst it's fresh in everybody's mind, Sarah, are you able to answer the question regarding the use of that land currently? I believe it was grazing, but I'm not. Arable. Well, do we have a local knowledge? Arable. Grass at the moment. Okay, does that answer? Okay, thank you. Okay, so Stephen, followed by Derek, followed by Andy, and then.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Councillor Farber-High, I think, had a question about the restitution of the site, which is condition 4 on page 62. So I think that deals with that, if I understood the question fairly comprehensively. I have to say I agree with the speakers so far. Like Councillor Woods, I am temperamentally disinclined to see the sterilisation of any good agricultural land. Nevertheless, you have to look at each planning application on its merits. And in this particular one, the circumstances, the topography, and the fact that the landscape impact is relatively limited, it's not near a protected or designated landscape, mean that I think this is one where, on balance, we should be supportive. So if Councillor Rigby is prepared to turn his suggestion of a proposal into reality, I will happily second him.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask Councillor Rigby when all the councillors have spoken at least once. So it's your turn, Derek, followed by Andy.
So my every instinct is to support this, and I think I will, and I agree with the comments to the effect that we shouldn't let the idea that to approve schemes like this means that you lose pretty views stand in the way, because ultimately there are bigger issues at stake, and of course renewable energy is a key part of tackling climate change. At the end of the day, when we get past all of that, which I think most of us can take as read, we've dealt with these applications before, it comes back to what land you actually then use if you are going to use agricultural land at all, which clearly we are. There are a lot of reasons in this case why this site, in terms of location, sight lines in the grand scheme of things, etc., make it better than others. And in the end, that's why I will support it, I think. But I just think we need to be very clear on this point about best and most versatile land, because that's what these ones I've seen so far ultimately seem to come down to. So the report, yes, it refers to the fact that only 14% is grade 1 land. The report also makes reference to a draft, what was then a draft version of the overarching national policy statement for energy. But that, as we saw in the presentation, became effective and is in force as of last week. So a document
that was not in force when the report was written is now in force. And that makes clear that applicants, looking at it, should seek to minimise impacts on the best and most versatile agricultural lands, defined as land in grades 1, 2 and 3A of the agricultural land classification, and preferably use land in areas of poorer quality, grades 3B, 4 and 5. So it's not merely land in grade 1, which is BMV, it does go down, and actually only 16% of the land under consideration here is in grade 3B. So if you look at the policy in relation to that, 83% or 84% is in fact in those top 3 grades. However, that document is obviously aimed primarily at nationally significant infrastructure projects. It does say that it can be a material consideration for local planning authorities, and so we're right to take account of it. But clearly, the words are not expressed in mandatory terms. There's reference to seeking to minimise impacts on those areas. And it does go on to speak of identifying effects such as minimising impacts on soil health, protecting and improving soil quality. And in that regard, it seems to me that common sense to apply the thought process that Will referred to earlier, that when land has been used intensively for arable for a period of time, giving it a rest is an idea. Ultimately, it comes back to the point there's a balancing exercise. To me, it tips in favour of support, and so I will support it. But I think we need to be clear and upfront that a significant proportion of this is best and most versatile land. But in this particular case, there are reasons why it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. And Andy Hadley, please. Andy.
Thank you, Chair. Solar farms are always contentious wherever you want to put them, no matter what land, whatever position. And I can sympathise with that. I've sat on planning committees with several solar farms. Some have gone for, some have gone against. This one, I get the feel, is probably the best location for for this particular farm. It's never going to be perfect. No, you're never going to get the perfect location for everybody. But I think it's as good as it's going to get. So I was going to propose that we go with the recommendation, but I'm quite happy to leave that to others.
Okay, thank you. I just want to pick up on one point, which was the comment from Councillor Parberhigh about the restoration of the work. And so that is addressed in condition 4, which states, within 3 calendar months of the solar panel array hereby permitted, permanently ceasing to be used for the generation of electricity, or the end of this permission, whichever is the earliest, the development shall cease and the solar array and associated infrastructure shall be permanently removed from the land and the site restored to its former condition, allowing for any appropriate enhancements in accordance with details to be submitted to and approved by, in writing, by the local planning authority prior to such works being carried out. Now, I think I'm going to check with our legal advisor, but I think that is as strong as we can go at this stage, because we do not know what the circumstances will be in 25 years' time, 40 years, whenever this site ceases to be in production for electricity. So I think that's the right answer, but I will just check with our legal advisor.
Yes, Chair. Yeah, condition 4 does require the submission of details at the time the decommissioning is taking place. So those will be approved by the local planning authority based on the situation at that time. And the condition does allow for appropriate enhancement to the land at that time. So I think I agree, that's probably as far as we can go now with that.
Councillor Wren, you want to come back on something?
Yes, if I may, and this is, I suspect, a rather peripheral point, but I can see which way the committee is drifting towards in terms of a decision. One of the things that was in the original briefing was an offer from the company to make local commitments, of financial commitments to the affected parishes and local charities. What I would like to know, certainly from Mr. Evans, is whether this is likely to form part of either a Section 106 agreement, or whether it would be able to condition, or whether it just is a sort of honourable agreement between the parties post a decision.
Through you, Chair. I've got experience of where developers of solar panel and wind turbines have entered into agreements with the local community about financial payments towards that community. Those are not material considerations for you in this discussion. That's why they do not feature in your officer report. So there may well be discussions taking place, but they're not part of your considerations this afternoon.
Okay. Everybody's wishes to speak on this is spoken. I'm not seeing anybody else wanting to speak on this. Councillor Rigby, are you prepared, as I think you were indicating earlier, to propose acceptance of this application?
I am, Chair. I don't think my words were entirely clear. I couldn't remember the word propose briefly, but yeah, that's what I meant to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Pugsley, are you officially, seconding that, right? Okay, so we have a proposal and a seconder for this application, for the approval of this application as per the officer's report. Can I see those in favour of that, please? 8, and those against, please? Against, and any abstentions? Right, 2 abstentions. Thank you. So 8-2. Okay, that application is passed, Julie, and that will continue. Okay, so we're going to move on to item 6 on your agenda now. Okay, item 6 is the application reference number is 19/23/0006, and it's for full planning permission. And it is for the erection of a 2-storey extension to the side of the dwelling and creation of vehicular access at Palmer's Green Cottage, Stewley Road, Beecham. This application is here to the committee because the planning agent is regularly employed by this authority to do planning work on behalf of this of the planning services authority, and therefore for transparency it needs to come to the committee for determination. So Mr. Hicks, good afternoon and welcome to the committee, and I'm glad your timing was perfect. Thank you for that. I almost think you might have been waiting outside. Okay, so when you're ready, Mr. Hicks. Short pause, or we have a technical issue. I'll take this opportunity at the close of this item. There'll be a short comfort break followed by a quick update on one of the major sites. Probably be 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, something like that. And it depends on how many questions you will ask, of course.
Thank you, Chair. This application is before the committee because the applicant's agent is employed on a regular basis by the council planning department as a consultant. So it's an application for a 2-storey extension to the side of a dwelling, creation of a vehicular access and parking at Palmer's Green Cottage. So here's the site outlined in red and some adjoining owned land in blue. And the site is in the open countryside as defined by the local plan. The existing property is a fairly modest 2-bed cottage. You can see it there on the site plan, this location. This is the proposed site plan. So this first one is the existing with a sort of T-shaped dwelling. Here is the proposed, so it's kind of H-shaped. So this section on the right-hand side is the proposed extension. The proposed extension would have 2 bedrooms, so it would go from a 2-bed to a 4-bedroom property. And this is the plan showing the vehicular access and parking. These are the existing plans. The property is constructed, finished with a mixture of stone, render to the walls, and then clay tiles to the roof. And there it is with the extension. The extension's designed to match the style and appearance of the existing property and to match in the materials. There is the existing floor plan. And there's the proposed floor plan with the extra 2 bedrooms. Just going through the pictures here. So this is the front elevation facing the road. This is the rear elevation. This is the side elevation from the side garden. And this is an image showing the approximate location of the access, which would come in about here. So the main considerations are as set out in the report: impact on the character and appearance of the area and the dwelling, impact on residential amenity, highway safety and ecology. So for the reasons given in the report, these are all considered to be acceptable, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, I've got one speaker that's on this, Mr. Rod Charlton. Mr. Charlton? That mic, if that mic. No, it's not. Get a microphone to Mr. Charlton. Thank you. You just bear with us a moment, Mr. Charlton. We'll get the technology sorted. Okay. When you're comfortable, Mr. Charlton, the red light is on. When you start speaking, your 3 minutes starts at that point, sir.
There is no other reason. The parish council is in support. There are no objections from anyone, including highways. In other circumstances, my application would have been dealt with under delegated powers. We've worked hard to quickly address all of the points raised by the planning officer during the application process, including changes to materials, removal of roof lights, providing 2 off-street parking spaces, along with the submission of a BAT report. The planning officer report supports my proposal and recommends approval. It is therefore hoped that you too can support my proposal and grant planning permission. Thank you. So is that 3 minutes?
Thank you very much. The first councillor to catch my eye was Squill, followed by Sarah Wakefield. Squill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to say, when I saw the site plan and then the building evolving into an H, I thought, my goodness, this is going to be overdevelopment of the site. And then the photographs, you looked at the photographs of the house, and actually, I think this is going to be a considerable improvement. So I am more than happy to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation, subject to other members' comments, of course.
On my list, Sarah Wedderford, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to ask about the planning history because it refers to a planning permission in 2022. It was erection of number one detached dwelling, which it says permitted with conditions. So is that a replacement of this dwelling or another one somewhere else? I wasn't quite sure. If you could just explain.
Yeah, so that if you look at the site plan there on the screen, so that permission was actually on the adjacent plot, which is outlined in blue. So it's a plot next door.
Has it been implemented?
No, so it hasn't been commenced yet. From what I recall, yeah, so it's an extant permission, so they can commence that at any time.
Okay, next councillor on my list was Mike Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. As the newbie here, I do feel slightly nervous in making the suggestion, but on the basis that the application is only here to ensure that there is no conflict of interest or perceived conflict of interest, I suggest that this is an application that probably would have sailed through under delegated powers fairly straightforwardly. Other than that, I'm satisfied that there's no conflict of interest here, so I'd be happy to second the proposal to approve at the appropriate point.
Excellent, thank you. Your contribution is most welcome. Ross Henley, please.
As Councillor Wakeford is, we're the ward division councillors for Hatch Beach, and as Mike's just said, it's only really here because the planning agent is regularly employed with the council. It would have been an officer delegated decision, no doubt. The applicant has pointed out, and it is clear in the report there's no objection from the parish council. I don't see any objections from any local residents, and it does seem to be an improvement of what is there already. So I would fully support the officer's recommendation for approval.
Okay, thank you. I can't see any other councillors wishing to speak. Is there anything you'd like to come back on, Mike, that's been raised?
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay, then we are now at the point of decision making. It's been proposed that we accept as per the recommendations by Councillor Gilran and seconded by Mike Rigby. Can I see those in favour of that, please? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, now the last item on our agenda is the reports on our planning appeals. So I'm going to turn that over to Sarah Stevens, who's going to quickly discuss that with us. And I'd remind everybody we'll have a quick comfort break and then we've got a briefing on one of the large sites.
Comfort break now.
Yeah, we have a comfort break when we finished, when Sarah's explained our appeals. Because it's a private session afterwards.
Thank you very much, Chair. With the agreement of the Chair, I was proposing to circulate the sort of briefing summary points from the appeals round to you all, rather than to read through them now, but I'm happy to take any questions if you have them, or to answer them once you've read the notes, if you have anything. So I don't propose to add any more here.
I'll just repeat my comments to you earlier in the week regarding the comments from the inspector about paperwork arriving in an appropriate time and information.
Yes, unfortunately, that looks like it was probably an error on our part. Quite often what happens is we get quite a number of things from the inspectorates at any one time. They seem to work in phases and waves of hitting Somerset. So it was an error on our part, but we'll ensure it doesn't happen again. Normally what happens is that the dates are put in the relevant officers' diaries as reminders. So that might not have happened in this case, but apologies. But
okay, I don't know if anybody's got any questions for Sarah immediately. If you haven't, when you've read the reports, read through them, if you have questions, please email Sarah and I'm sure you will get a response or choose very quickly. Sarah.
Yeah, just pleased, wanted to say I was pleased to see that a fair proportion of the appeals were dismissed. So I think it's a credit to our planning team that we get the right results.
Absolutely. And when you read through them, those that were allowed, they were allowed with sufficient conditions for it to be almost a Pyrrhic victory. But that's just my view. Okay, so we're going to have a 10-minute comfort break and an 11-minute comfort break. At 5, I'd like us back ready at 5:22, please. And we'll go through the details of that application then. Thank you.